Greetings, this is Paul the Poke from paulthepoke.com. Today's topic, trend update, Jewish Sanhedrin proclaims year of Jubilee. Now, this is the same Sanhedrin. They are back in the news. They've reconvened back in 2005 after about a 1600-year absence, and they oversee legal matters and future construction of a pending third temple in Jerusalem. And this is the same group. In the New Testament, in the Greek, it's frequently the Sanhedrin is translated as council. And it's a group of 71 members, made up of members from Pharisees and Sadducees back in the day of Jesus. And the Sanhedrin was led by a high priest back in Jesus' day, Caiaphas. They have no high priest right now. They're looking for one. They know he's to be the Messiah. He's at the right hand of the Father, but that's another story for another day. And this is also the same Sanhedrin that illegally arrested, tried, and convicted Jesus in Luke 22, Mark 14. And they pressured Pilate for Jesus' death on a cross in Mark 15. They are different. The Sanhedrin does have a website, and if you're interested, you could check out www.thesanhedrin.org. So probably the other question is, well, what is the Jubilee, and what's the big deal about that? And for that, we need to go to the law, Leviticus 25, verses 8 through 13. You shall count 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the time of the 7 weeks of years shall give you 49 years. Pretty straightforward math. Then you shall sound the loud trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the day of atonement you shall sound the trumpet throughout all your land. And you shall consecrate the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, when each of you shall return to his property, and each of you shall return to his clan. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows of itself, nor gather the grapes from the undressed vines. For it is a jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You may eat the produce of the field. In this year of Jubilee, each of you shall return to his property. So the Hebrew word for Jubilee is Yovel. And just translated per Strong's Concordance, it means a ram's horn, a trumpet, or a coronet. It's also translated Jubilee. But when you think Jubilee, you think of a ram's horn, the shofar, the trumpet. And, per Scripture, we know that a Jubilee year is proclaimed after the 7th sabbatical or Shemitah year. So technically, a Jubilee year has to come after a sabbatical or Shemitah year. And, in that sense, then the land should rest in back-to-back years 49 and 50. Now, year 50 also happens to be year 1 of the next set of Jubilee years. So, 1 through 50 is a Jubilee. Year 50 also happens to be year 1 of the next 50, or the next set of 7. So the question that gets to be is, after what Jubilee year does one proclaim, after what Shemitah or sabbatical year does one claim a Jubilee year? So how do you know the sequence? The Jubilee year is to be proclaimed on the Day of Atonement. This isn't one of God's fall feasts. Now, this would be in the fall. So, coming up this year, it would be in early October, would be the end of the year as they're proclaiming it now. So, the Scripture says, then you shall sound the loud trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the Day of Atonement, you shall sound the trumpet throughout all of your land. Now, the nation of Israel and religious leaders have not proclaimed a Jubilee year in close to 2,000 years. And if you do, or if they do, they should proclaim it. If this were truly a year of Jubilee, then that should have been proclaimed in the fall of 2015. So they're technically breaking the law They should have proclaimed it last fall if this is truly a year of Jubilee. Little detail there. I mean, it's not the first time that the Sanhedrin has done something illegal, but, you know, it hasn't been proclaimed for close to 2,000 years. And they have been deliberating during this year. The Sanhedrin has announced 3/4 of the way through this Jubilee year that this is the first year in the counting of a 50-year Jubilee cycle. Now, the issue gets to be, are these folks on God's timing? Because technically year 1 can also be year 50, and it's not so much what man has to say about it. What's God's calendar say about it? The Jubilee is a commandment per the law, and we went over that in Leviticus, that's observed exclusively in the land of Israel. And the 50th year, the Jubilee year, comes after 7 sabbaticals. Now it concerns property rights, returning the land to its original inheritors, the Jews. Debts are forgiven. Slaves who were sold for themselves due to debt were set free. Now the problem is, when this proclamation was made, very few Jews have acknowledged the Sanhedrin's legal Jubilee decision. And Rabbi Hillel Weiss, he explained their decision to reinstate the Jubilee, and that as they saw it, a certain set of criteria had to be reached. Jews have to return to the land to inherit the land, and so they are back as a nation, so the people are in the nation to inherit the land, and it has to do with Israel's national identity. Well, Israel's a nation again, and they're in the land. And so they've also taken the time to recognize this as this is the prophesied third inheritance of the land. The first was the Jordan, the second was after the Babylonian exile, and now after roughly 2,000 years after, the Romans tore down Jerusalem in 70 AD and dispersed everybody, they're pretty much back in the land and have been back in the land since the early 20th century. Became a nation in 48, got Jerusalem as its capital in 67, and so and then going back 50 years before that, the Balfour Declaration, 1918. So they're looking at the math of this, and they are making a mathematical case for, hey, this is probably a year of Jubilee. Now they can't go back and make them retroactive because there's no precedence for that, but they can look at it and say, hey, you know what? It's been 50 years. This is the 50th year since Israel's been in the land and Jerusalem's its capital. And the other thing they're saying is that, hey, we've got at least 600,000 Jews, like the number that returned to Israel from Egypt under Joshua. So, there are lots of implications with this, and there are going to be some follow-up posts on the YouTube side in regards to the idea of Jubilee. But the main 5 concepts or laws, mitzvot, as they would say in the Hebrew: count the Jubilee, let the free slaves free, return the land to its owner, blowing the shofar, and forgiving debts. So if you're interested in this topic, there's lots of stuff written at paulthepoke.com, keyword Jubilee, and there are 7 posts that are written on the website, and those will become there will be videos about those as well. But it's a big deal because there's some hints that would suggest that whenever that Jubilee year is, as God defines it, somebody can return and can be within the requirements of the law. And as Jesus himself said, he did not come here to abolish the law, but he came here to fulfill it. So again, if you're interested, check out paulthepoke.com, keyword Jubilee. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.